Yet it's another epic episode of Youth and Drugs. My name is Adio Piri, and today in the studio with me is the Aaron from Youth Against Drugs and Substance Abuse Zimbabwe, YADSAZ, and Molyne Mukomawasha from the Female Students Network, FSN. And ladies, it's my pleasure to have you here in the studio with me. And today we're going to discuss about drug abuse among the youth. I'll start with you, Heather, to tell me what are some common reasons why young people are engaging into drugs.
Thank you so much. Most of the common reasons why the youth are now indulging in drugs and substance abuses. Firstly, the major one is unemployment. The unemployment rate is higher in those countries. And secondly, it's due to peer pressure from the social media and the social lifestyles which young people are now indulging in via the social media. What they see, they try to experiment what they see on the music videos from worldwide, from the developed countries. And also the other thing is the families. Like most people indulge in drugs due to family-related issues. Like if someone comes from a broken family, maybe from a family where parents are divorced and they are living separately, they might use drugs as a runaway from depression and also from family issues. These are the major causes in Zimbabwe.
Right now, I'll come to you, Molyne Mukomawasha from the Female Student Network. What are the common reasons why youth are engaging into drugs, on your perspective?
Okay. Well, thank you for that interesting question. I kind of concur with most of the issues that have been raised by Heather to say that drugs are really used as a form of escapism from undesirable social realities by some of the youths. So this could be an issue of idleness, an issue of unemployment, as she has highlighted, that some youth then use drugs as a form of escapism. However, in as much as yes, the society is really contributing, from my own observation of the general demeanor that we have as the Generation Z, as you may want to call it, I've realized that we lack a sense of accountability because we look outside of the person to look for the issues that may be causing someone to want to engage in drug abuse. But then sometimes it may be an issue of just general neglect amongst us sometimes, where you actually see that we have an undesirable desire, an insatiable desire, rather to experiment. As Heather has really highlighted how the Western popular culture really has an impact on how we perceive issues. Some may even want to experiment because they think it's the cool thing to do. From watching the hip hop videos from various countries, they do not realize how the negative impact of drug and substance abuse may be. So sometimes it's just mere experimentation from the youths.
That was Molyne Mukomawasha from the Female Students Network, FSN, when she mentioned a lot. So, my second question comes back to you, Heather. How has youth and drug abuse impacted local communities in Zimbabwe?
Drug substance abuse has a higher negative impact in the communities which we are coming from, which we are living in here in Zimbabwe, in that they are causing family disruptions, like I mentioned. If a family has someone who has become a drug addict, they tend to neglect the person, and then the community, if your family has neglected you, eventually the community will neglect you because you are now a drug addict. And also lack of rehabilitation centers so we can take those drug addicts too, so that they can get help, which has caused like families to disrupt, and then the bonds which were within the family will tend to break because people will be now blaming each other for the cause or the turnaround of a guy or a child to become a drug addict. Secondly, the crimes, the crime rate has now increased, especially in the ghettos, the high density suburbs, whereby the drug addicts, since we have mentioned that they are unemployed, they need to buy drugs, then they will now indulge in activities like robberies, burglaries, and shoplifting, and even pickpocketing, which has become violent.
Coming back to you, Molyne, what are some of the challenges faced by the community members where drugs are being abused?
Well, drug and substance abuse is really a thorn in the flesh for most communities because it is a cancerous virus that is befell on our communities. So you realize that I really concur with the issues that Heather has just raised to say that the crime rates, because some of these drug abusers then resort to violent measures and resort to just any desperate measure that is available to them for them to get access to those drugs, which makes our communities really unsafe. Another issue can be how drug and substance abuse really plays an impact in terms of spread of HIV. The prevalence of HIV amongst the youth then becomes really high because when the youths are engaging in drug and substance abuse, they are likely to engage in risky sexual behaviors where they then maybe contract various STIs and HIV because then they are not aware and in control of their actions, as they will be under the influence of various substances, which is making the fight against some serious diseases like HIV, some serious infections like HIV, amongst other diseases, to be really hard to combat because they really have a causal effect on that prevention of those diseases, because drug and substance abuse really makes people to really lose their sense of morality and conscience. So that has been one of the key issues that has been negatively impacted by drug and substance abuse.
Coming back to you, Heather, how effective do you think current prevention and intervention programs in addressing drug abuse among youth in Zimbabwe?
So as YADSAZ, speaking as YADSAZ, we have awareness campaigns which we do to educate the people about drug and substance abuse. Mainly we focus on educating their parents firstly before we reach out to the children and to the youth, because we need to educate their parents so that they help also in this pandemic of drug abuse and drug and substance abuse, which is now in Zimbabwe, which is now affecting the nation as a whole. Also, we do offer support groups for those who are affected by the drugs. Also, free counseling services for both the affected parties and also their families, who are people who are living affected by the drugs. So these are some of the measures which we do, and also to act on workshops, and we have come up with projects which generate incomes for the youths so that there is life after. If someone has quitted the drugs, there is also life after, so that after the whole process, the support group processes the workshops which will be doing with the drug addicts, and also even those individuals who are living with the addicts, so that they can help them work, like not to become idle, and also to work using their hands and using their skills so that they can survive and live a drug-free life.
And that was Heather on behalf of YADSAZ, when she mentioned that the first to get help is the people that we live within our societies. I'll come back to you, Molyne. As female students network, as your organization, what are the measures and what do you do, like the effectiveness in prevention in intervention programs in addressing drug abuse among youth in Zimbabwe?
Well, as FSM, we really have been trying so hard to make sure that we prevent, as the old adage says, that prevention is better than cure. So we really have been engaging in education and awareness the same way as it has just highlighted, is that they have been engaging in education and awareness. We also have been doing that in various tertiary institutions. And we have been trying so much to provide psychosocial support to the families affected by drugs and substance abuse, and those who have been engaging in drug and substance abuse have also benefited from psychosocial support, which includes linkage with rehabilitation and also free counseling services and even engagement with communities. So we have also been trying to make sure that some of our interventions goes beyond the tertiary institutions to have a catch them young approach, where we start off with even students who are as young as primary school students. So in terms of the GIF, in terms of the prevention strategies and intervention strategy, generally as a nation, I do think that there is need to maximize on education and awareness, because if we are to teach drug and substance abuse and the impact that it has from a tender age, that would then be imparted into the children, so that they grow up learning about the adverse realities of drug and substance abuse. So I think we can go an extra mile to even incorporate it within the curriculum, the education curriculum, where we then have drug and substance abuse being taught. In the textbooks, we have to see stories to do with how drug and substance abuse distorts and destroys communities. I think having a catch them young approach then really assists, because we have a stereotypical view of us thinking that drugs and substance abuse is only affecting those who are a bit older. Yet we see young people young children rather being affected by it. Remember that video that went viral of some 10-year-olds during Christmas who were intoxicated by alcohol. That's a tip of the iceberg. It really reflects to how this issue has been ravaging our communities. Little children are also affected. So I think the education should be tailor-made to incorporate those young ones, and our languages to also speak to them, so that they also know that there is something called drug and substance abuse. It's a taboo that we shouldn't engage in from a tender age.
Molyne, according to Zimbabwe National Drug Master Plan, the prevalence of drug abuse in Zimbabwe is estimated to be around 4% of the population. However, this number may not be accurate, reflecting the full extent of the problem, as drug abuse can be difficult to detect and quantify. As much as these people are abusing these drugs, are there any gaps or areas to improve in terms of helping those people who are being affected or abusing drugs?
Yes, thank you for that question. As I have alluded earlier, that we need to improve our education and awareness to incorporate the younger ones, and also to ensure that when we talk about these drugs, the education and awareness campaigns should not be the just say no to drugs kind of. You really cannot tell someone who has been abusing drugs for quite a long time to say just say no to drugs. That's not really comprehensive. I think we need to have a comprehensive approach that looks at the multi-sectional dimensions that have been contributing to drug and substance abuse. For example, when you know that someone has been using that as a form of escapism due to unemployment, there is need to have a follow-up intervention program that seeks to address the root causes of drug and substance abuse. Because in as much as we may come up with strategies that seeks to alleviate the problem on people who are already abusing drugs, yet we are not addressing the root cause, we may find ourselves just circling the roundabout without having any meaningful progress. So I think there is need to really address the deeper structural problems that are driving youths to abuse drugs. If it's poverty, let's have poverty alleviation programs that then assist the youth so that they don't resort to drugs as a form of escapism. Let's also have access to opportunities, access to employment, and also ensure that when we do these education and awareness campaigns. We have a full package that seeks to address the root cause and the manifestations of the problem, as well as a follow-up to continuously monitor and evaluate the success of or the effectiveness of the various programs that we would have initiated. So I think there's just need, or the initiatives are there, there's just need to be more vigilant in making sure that we implement them.
They say knowledge is power, and we are being educated on how to avoid and on how to stop abusing drugs. So my question goes back to you, Heather, from the Youth Against Drug and Substance Abuse of Zimbabwe, YADSAZ. Heather, what role do you believe parents, schools, communities should play in preventing and addressing drug abuse amongst the youth?
Okay, the parents have a greater role as they are the ones. Okay, for the famous saying which says charity begins at home. So the parents, they play a very crucial role in helping us as organizations to fight against drug and substance abuse. In that the parents themselves need to be educated on the drugs. For example, when we perform workshops, we normally ask our partners, the therapy, if they can provide us with some sample of the drugs which they could have, they have kept as exhibits, so that we teach the parents, we tell the parents, showing them what this drug is and how it's used, and also so that they can determine the behavioral changes within their children which they are now manifesting due to the use of the drug. For example, I myself used to think that Mutoriro is drunk, yet it's smoked. And then normally they use the bulbs. So due to these workshops, I've come to realize and to understand how they work. So a parent might be staying home with a kid who's already using drugs. And drugs, it's not all about alcohol or cigarettes or those cannabis which we are used to. Also, some kids, they're now using brake fluid.
Even Pampers.
Exactly, Pampers, brake fluid, and even gas. There's the case of which happened last year of a kid who was inhaling gas. So there's several changes and some characteristics which the children will be portraying. So the parents are there to monitor their children, to monitor their behavior, to monitor whatever they do before we go to the community. As a community, they will be just helping to monitor. Maybe let's say there's some child-headed families, members of the community who also intervene in just checking on the behaviors which the children will be manifesting if the parents, they are not around. And also the churches, they need to put services or activities, activities like cleanup campaigns whereby they gather the youths not from their church or domination only, but also from the community, so that they can educate them and find young people who can educate them, not to use people who are way older. But if we're dealing with a group of maybe 10 to 16 years, we find someone who's 20, 25 years who can engage with them in their language which they can understand.
Various factors has been cited is contributing to the rise in youth drugs in Africa, including poverty, unemployment, lack of education, and social instability. Molyne, can you discuss any successful initiative or strategies which was implemented in other regions or other countries to combat drug abuse among youth, and how applicable do you think they can do in our nation, Zimbabwe?
Well, thank you so much for that interesting question. Well, various countries have really proved to have making strides in terms of combating drug and substance abuse. But what I found interesting is that they really have stringent laws in terms of drug trafficking and drug and substance abuse, where someone really knows that once you're caught in possession of a drug, you are in for a serious offense. So I think the legal structures of several countries, especially in the Arabic countries, where we see that drug and substance abuse is really an issue. Unlike in some African countries, relatively, this is quite a complex question, because to have a really comparative analysis of which one is better and which one it depends on the context of that society. But I really think and admire some Islamic states in terms of how they've tackled drug and substance abuse, where it is taboo to be found around imposition of a drug or abusing a drug. So I think the implementation of the laws that they have is quite strict and more vigilant than we have here. And I think our laws as well, they are really effective. In theory, they are really effective, but I think there's need to do more in terms of the implementation of those laws. So I really cannot pinpoint that this country has really done it, but it's still a work in progress, and I think we can continuously learn from the best practices of other countries, and we can continuously adopt. But I do not think that ours really have major gaps. It's just that part of implementation that I think we need to do more and emulate from other countries that have successfully implemented drug and substance abuse laws and really have witnessed a change.
In recent years, Zimbabwe has taken some steps to address drug problems, including strengthening drugs laws enforcement, increasing awareness about the dangers of drug abuse, and providing treatment and rehabilitation services for drug users. To you, Molyne, how can we work to reduce the stigma surrounding drug abuse among youth and encourage open dialogue and support for those who may be struggling with addictions?
Stigma has really been a drawback in our communities in trying to fight drug and substance abuse, because once someone has been labeled as a drug and substance abuser in different communities, they already are being discriminated from even access to some services. They are not really viewed within positive lenses. They are viewed as useless people within the society. So this really has a negative attitude towards how people then respond to issues of drug and substance abuse. Because once someone starts abusing drugs, their families and the community gives up on them. They don't know that they can really engage in rehabilitative services and access some of rehabilitative services that can seek to maybe assist the person who has been abusing drugs. So once people have stigma around drug and substance abuse, it makes them not want to be accommodative of even having open dialogues around drug and substance abuse, because people then think that it's a them and us issue. These ones, they kind of use that them and us language when referring to people who use and misuse drugs. So I think that then has an impact in terms of how we are tackling. We are not having a unified and collective voice in fighting against drug and substance abuse, because once someone has been abusing them, you think that you are exempt, or some parents think that their children are exempt from that same predicament. So there is need to have that sensitivity in our communities, where we know that their problem is also our problem. We can even revert back to our Ubuntu, I am because you are. So there is need to have that collectivity and fight stigma, because once we have stigma, people are not really open to deal with the problem.
Yes, she mentioned that law enforcement is one of the things that has to be implemented in terms of avoiding drug abuse amongst the youth. And now coming back to you, Heather, End Reform Act of 2004 is the primary legislation governing criminal law in Zimbabwe. It provides a comprehensive set of criminal offenses and penalties covering a wide range of activities, including theft, assault, murder, fraud, and drug trafficking. How can international collaborations and partnership contribute to efforts to combat youth and drugs in Zimbabwe? To you, Molyne.
Indeed, international collaborations are really instrumental in fighting against drugs. For example, it will then assure us to have stringent measures on our borders, because remember, we are really talking about the accessibility of these drugs speaks to them being available and then crossing from border to border. So if it's an international collective kind of effort that we're making, it makes it hard for some of these drugs to be really accessible to our youths. Because how come we can have access to drugs that are produced in some foreign countries such as the United States, in some countries such as Canada, Australia, Botswana, South Africa? How do we have them here in Zimbabwe? So if we have an international collaboration to really fight against drugs and substance abuse, then it really impacts the trafficking of drugs and minimizes the mobility of drugs from one place to the other. And also, an international collaboration would also allow us to exchange experiences as different countries. Remember, you've asked me on how some other nations have tackled drugs and substance abuse. So once we have an international kind of approach to drug and substance abuse, it means that nations can have a platform to share best practices. They can learn from each other. They can learn on what works and what doesn't. And that then is really important, because some of the ideas we learn from the best. So having that interaction at an international level is important, as we can have better practices, as we can learn to revolutionize even our laws. As Hida has just mentioned, that some of the laws do not comprehensively incorporate some of the current drugs that are being used now. So in order to strengthen our laws, in order to really have an effective legal structure that fights against drug and substance abuse, that is updated and current, we need those international practices, because we can collectively learn from each other.
Okay, so for the policymakers and the legislation, I think they should engage in exchange programs whereby they have to some representative from the legislations, from the policymakers, they need also to participate, to come when their drug awareness campaigns are being held, so that they can have an exchange whereby they'll be giving us the knowledge on the legislation, on the drugs, the laws and regulations on drug-specific drugs. And also we'll be giving them the experience we are having, and also the type of substances which are being abused also.
For sure, you are the voice of the voiceless. Maybe as we are about to round it up, what roles can community stakeholders, including the churches, community leaders, and other structures play in amplifying the voice and support efforts to address drug abuse among the youth?
Okay, in our communities, most of us we are Christians, and we have a tendency of listening more to the elders, to the prophets, to the pastors. So I think when we're doing the awareness campaigns, we should engage also the pastors, because some people they receive the words which you're saying differently if it's preached by someone. Let's say if a pastor comes and addresses an issue of drugs, they might even listen to it more than I, just as a counselor, as a passionate person about drugs. So I think we can engage the churches. We also do engage them. We also ask them if we, for example, YADSAZ normally partners with Sayota when they're having cleanup campaigns. They can pick the YADSAZ so that they will be walking around with their banners, and then people will just come just because it's under the pretext of a change. So I think we can use them, like the elders, the pastors from churches, to spearhead during our awareness campaigns or workshops. We can also need to engage them. And also even the city councils, maybe the mayors, if they can just come in, like even for once at an event, a track event, so that they can address the issue. Since we have said people, they receive the same word can be preached by different people, and it's received by different people, and they receive it differently. So I think if not us only just going about doing the campaigns, but also if we engage even the elderly, the another border.
Okay, ladies, that was something which was valid and very helpful. So then, in terms of these drug abusers, we normally see them in the streets, and usually in our ghettos where we stay, we usually know and we normally know this is the place where the base is, like she mentioned earlier, and usually know this is the person who is selling drugs, uh, killing the future of the coming generation, killing the future of the youth of today. So are there any specific like legal instruments to stop drug abuse in Zimbabwe?
There's a time that I went to airport. So I really marveled at the idea that an organization called Medicine Sans Frontiers was utilizing, where we have peer educators going into the communities, scouting for drug and substance users who are willing to um, benefit from that program through having rehabilitation. So they would scout for those. They use the same age mates, the same age group of the most common drug and substance abusers age group. So the use of peer educators was really appealing for me because then they are open to discussion, they are open to divulge and talk openly on the various experiences that we're facing, and those that feel that they need to quit the use and abuse of drugs, they would then benefit from a free rehabilitative program. I found that to be really useful because the peer educators are derived from that same community, so they know each other, they are open to the interactions, they're really positive. So I think that's one of the grassroots projects that I found quite outstanding. So a lesson learned from that is that maybe if we really involve the ages to be age sensitive, to use the same age groups of the same drug abusers, because once there's ageism in Zimbabwe, it's a cultural issue where the older ones, the seniority kind of approach that we use to tackle our issues, they will feel Damadara Lungens and something like that. It's the older ones trying to approach us, but when they hear it from their own age mates, they are responsive to it, unlike when they're hearing it from the older generations. So I think that generational kind of approach where we use the same age mates really works.
How can people reach out to you? And in a way, I just want you to introduce yourself with the organization, what you do, all of you, in a minute.
So my name is Molyne Mukomawasha. I am a social worker, and I'm also a committee member of the Female Students Network Trust, which is an organization that seeks to fight sexual harassment in tertiary institutions amongst female students. So as Female Students Network Trust, we've really been passionate about drug and substance abuse because it really has an impact on sexual violence, gender-based violence, amongst other undesirable effects that it has on the community. So we really have been amplifying our voice in trying to fight drug and substance abuse. So as Female Students Network Trust, we are present on all social media platforms. If you type Female Students Network Trust, you can find our page on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and other platforms.
My name is Aaron, and I'm a counselor at YADSAZ, which is Youth Against Drugs and Substance Abuse in Zimbabwe. Normally, this is a non-profit making organization which is well established and backed up with other partners like DNA Confidential Zimbabwe, the ZRP, the ZPS, WAF, and Honest Tech Design and other ministries. What we basically do is we do educational awareness campaigns on drugs and substance abuses. We offer support groups, also offer exchange programs and trainings on different skills, and also we are available on all social media platforms. You can just go on our Facebook page, YADSAZ, also Instagram and Twitter. Then our physical offices are located at 106 Nelson Mandela and all 6 Nelson Mandela Corner Farm Street if you need any of our services.
Yes, that was your youth podcast, Youth and Drugs, with your host Adjo Piri. And today in the studio I was with Molyne, Mukomawasha, and Hitha Taduanashe Aaron, where we were discussing the prevalence of drugs in the society. Let's catch up next time, same place. Bye bye.